Hello and welcome everyone. This is your astrology forecast for New Moon in Virgo that is happening on the 23rd of August. And this is the first New Moon in Virgo out of two, because we have the next lunation of New Moon is New Moon solar eclipse also in Virgo. And this one is happening at 0 degree of Virgo, while the next lunation, the new moon solar eclipse, is happening at the very last degree of Virgo. And this is very interesting, and you can really tell by these alignments that universe definitely has a divine timing, and it's very precise and it creates a powerful performance that we see as fate, as our life, as experiences, but our being is creating it actually. But we are like projectors, and the world we see is a projection, and we are usually focused on our projection. And this new moon in Virgo is making a tense square with Uranus. Uranus is at first degree of Gemini, while this new moon is happening at the 0 degree of Virgo. But they are both mutable signs, which is great, because this energy is really applying a pressure on us to break free from something, to be adaptable, to be ready and bold enough for changes, to flow with changes. And new moon in Virgo means that the sun and the moon are together. They come into the sacred union, into the sacred marriage, and they are both at 0 degree. So this is like really an initiation into something that invites us into ability to separate wheat from chaff, to learn to discern, to be more responsible, to be more diligent, and to acknowledge what is not right and what am I not doing anymore, what is unhealthy for me, what is taking away my energy, my health, my time. Where am I wasting my time? What am I investing into? My time and energy, my body, my service, because Virgo is service oriented, detail oriented, and we definitely have to take a look at where we are being of service as a martyr, as a slave, and not as a true servant that comes with pure intention. Virgo is about purity and chastity. Virgo, the archetype of the virgin, but this doesn't refer to sexuality when we say virgin. This is about the purity. And we are now reminded of the importance of pure mind, body, and heart. We are able to see some things with new eyes. This is new moon in Virgo, so we are getting a new perspective about something. We are starting something new, something fresh, and we are planting seeds into something that needs our commitment and devotion, where we have to create new healthy habits and routines. And we are being asked, what would we want to do if we didn't have to do it for money? These are our everyday habits, everyday tasks, everyday duties, our obligations, our responsibilities, our ability to be of service, our self-care too, our nurturance, nourishment, and our health and our well-being. And Virgo in the 6th house has a lot to do with self-development and perfectionism. And perfectionism, when it comes, when it's based on only material perfectionism, leads to anxiety. So we may be dealing with anxiety, but we will be able to see it with new eyes, to give it a fresh perspective. And with Uranus in the game, with this square, we are going to feel the crisis, the pressure to change something. We will have an urge to change our repetitive behavior, to change our tasks and duties that we repeatedly do every day. And the question that I often mention when I speak about Virgo is, what would I still want to do even when everything fails? What is that one thing that I would still want to do, that feels good to be repeated, and that is healthy for me, that is good, and that comes from my pure intention? And this new moon is also reminding us that everything happens for a reason, but that reason is not to stay stuck or to stay small or to silently suffer. Because Virgo part in us, the lower Virgo part in us, keeps us stuck in repetitive cycles and patterns. But it also pushes us to be better, to do better, to improve ourselves continuously. This is that healthy need for perfectionism, because without this healthy need for perfectionism, we would never try better, try harder. But this has to be understood from the right perspective. And Uranus here is going to give us really strong impulse to break free from something that feels imprisoning, to break free from our everyday life that feels boring, stale, stuck, that feels exhausting, tiring, that makes us feel sick, that really has no meaning. And we are all asking ourselves some hard questions, and the answers are coming quickly with this Uranus in the game. And Uranus is in Gemini, so some quick news, some powerful, shocking message or information is going to kick us out of our daily comfort zone, of our everyday life, of our usual way of living our life. So it's very possible that suddenly we change our everyday life and we change our perspective about what it means to live a healthy life. And Virgo is a lot about fixing, correcting, making things right, making things work, not making mistakes, and making mistakes. And this new moon here is giving us new perspectives around mistakes and criticism too. There is healthy criticism that I usually call advice. Healthy criticism is more like an advice, but we have trouble accepting criticism because we are trapped in our fake ego system where we are identified with our personality. So when somebody wants to give us an advice, a healthy advice, we receive it as an attack, and then we react in a way that is either offensive or overly defensive, and that's where conflict emerges. And this is also a lot about being faced with feelings, feeling ashamed of something, or taking too much on ourselves, blaming ourselves or blaming others for something, or being focused on finding mistakes. And this new moon with Uranus in the game, and with Mercury, the ruler of this new moon, and Mercury is also the ruler of Gemini, where Uranus is. So Mercury plays an important role now, and it's still in the shadow period. It just came out of retrograde season, and it's in Leo, and it's about communication, the right way of communicating and listening, and being able to see the brighter side of every story, and to make someone smile, and to make ourselves smile. So when we have a need to be focused on mistakes, our own or somebody else's, this new moon gives us an opportunity to make fun of it, to laugh about it, to see the sunny and funny side of all of that, of our need for criticism and judgment and blaming and shaming. And we are also faced with our need to take responsibility of others, where we are usually then being taken advantage of. But why we do that if nobody asks us? If nobody is asking for a favor and we come on our own, we are usually going to end up feeling betrayed in some way or feeling taken advantage of. So this is very powerful time to again learn to discern between, where we should offer our help, our advice, our criticism, and where we should just step back and allow things to happen on their own and letting others do their job. Letting others do their job and letting ourselves do our job, not putting our burdens on others and not letting others, not taking the burdens of others, because it's impossible. We cannot take burdens of others on ourselves. And this new moon with Uranus in the game, with this square, can create a chaotic atmosphere, chaotic experiences. But chaos is not the problem. It's how we interpret it, it's how we receive it, it's how we handle it, how we go through that chaos. But chaos on its own is never a problem. And Uranus is the great awakener. Uranus brings earthquakes and shakeups, and it kicks us out of our comfort zone. And it really puts us into a place where we have an opportunity to free ourselves from those false comfort zones. And it comes with square, so square creates crisis and pressure, and it brings challenges and tests. But the purpose behind every challenge is to awaken your power, not to keep you asleep. And life never asks us to avoid the pain or to avoid the discomfort. It invites us to transform ourselves through those experiences. And all the wounds that arise and that we experience are not there to define us. Wounds are not defining us. They are not giving us any definition. And we can never actually define who we are. There are no definitions. But with this new moon in Virgo, we may have a need to define ourselves, to be overly analytical and logical, and to explain things, to have facts and to chop things. Virgo part in us likes to chop things, to separate them. And we then don't have the ability to see the bigger picture. But the opposition from this Virgo is Pisces, of course, and Pisces is about seeing the bigger picture. And wounds arise to guide us towards healing, which is related to Virgo. Virgo carries the archetype of, as I said, the virgin, the purifier, the shaman. But there is always that struggle between, Virgo carries the energy of the priestess and the mistress. It's it's at the beginning of the gates of that sacred trilogy of Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio. And Libra stands between Virgo and Scorpio. It weighs, between being the priestess and the mistress. But we can bring them together in the sacred marriage. And the glyph of Virgo and the glyph of Scorpio are very similar. If you know, this is the M letter. The M, one is on the inside, one is on the outside. And the M letter is very mystical and mysterious, and it's related to esoteric teachings and mysteries that carry the wisdom of knowing thyself. So we are now being initiated into this energy of being the priests and priestesses, and also carrying that unconscious part of us consciously. And karmic cycles are very strongly activated now because we are in the eclipse season, and the next two lunations are both eclipses. We have full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces on the 7th of September, and then we have new moon solar eclipse in Virgo on the 21st of September. So we are moving towards some very powerful karmic releases and life-changing shifts. So these karmic cycles are not there to imprison us. They are actually like the crossroads. And we are reminded that we are not here to repeat the past, to repeat the traumas, but to rewrite them, to see them from the new perspective. As we grow and evolve and we develop, we open up new layers that give us new perspective of our past. And our past can be a very powerful resource if we can use it in that way, and not as something that happened to us, that defines us, that we are identified with, and that we cannot get out of, that we just keep repeating and repeating and repeating, same old, same old. But this is something, this lunation will give us insight, and we are going to have that gut feeling within ourselves. Virgo is related to our digestive system and body awareness, so our body will tell us what's wrong. When we are in the room where we don't feel we belong there, our body tells us immediately. When we are having a conversation with someone that doesn't feel right, we immediately feel it. Our body tells us, our gut tells us. So let's listen to our body and let's connect with our body, because body carries the past. Our bodies carry everything that ever happened to us. It carries that cell memory. And each cell is alive and it responds. So we are now asked to come back together with that body awareness. And we can do it through being in nature, as always, of course, being silent, doing some body self-care treatments that reconnect us with our being, that speaks to us through our body, through our senses. And we are asked to choose evolution over comfort and freedom over fear. We may struggle a lot between the need for evolution and the need for comfort, the need for growth and the need for comfortable experiences, the need for freedom and our fear of freedom, and where we are going to meet ourselves in that freedom. And we are asked not to live as slaves to our fate, because we know from our experiences that many people just say, oh, it's a fate, it's how my life is, it's my natal chart. We always blame it on something. It's much easier than to take conscious responsibility for who we are and what we do, for what we can control. But of course, to surrender to higher powers those things that are outside of our control. And it's paradoxical at the same time, because when we are being in that state where we are blaming external circumstances and our charts and Mercury retrograde and eclipses, when we blame it on those things, we are actually stuck in the need for control. But when we let go of that need for control, then we truly live our faith, our essential core path, our true journey. And we are now asked to walk this journey with conscious choices, not by chance. And we are learning to stay in the flow with alignment, moving with intention rather than reaction. And we are not here just to observe the universe. We are here to activate our etheric bodies and to move in the rhythm with our cosmic blueprint. And we are invited to recognize the power of polarities because even though it's new moon, we are feeling the energy of lunar eclipse in Pisces too. And Pisces can be seen as an ocean, while Virgo can be seen as a sand. And they have to collaborate if we want to have the wholeness. It's like the shore and the ocean, beach and the sea. And there is that threshold, the border right between these two. This is where we meet ourselves. This is where we meet ourselves in the present moment without being pushed or pulled by our future or our past, because they are both into the now. Our future and our past are both in the now. But our perspective separates them. Our perspective, our ego perspective, separates everything. And this is the ability to see things as to see everything as a part of everything, to see that everything is in everything. And it's really hard to put these things into words, but we have to find a way to understand these things. And we may be faced with self-criticism or feel critical of others. We can experience withdrawal of ourselves or others, hypersensitivity, confusion, indecisiveness. And we came here to remember our role as a conscious creator, as an essence that turns pain into wisdom and resistance into growth. And there is a lot of ability for awakening our psychic awareness and a greater compassion for others. There is this lunation really invites us to discover how both ends can find fulfillment and integration without getting lost in the forest or swept out to sea. And it could be easy to get consumed entirely in a detail-intensive projects. And all of that is actually very powerful for us to sharpen our attention and priorities so that we can stay grounded over the coming weeks, many weeks, because eclipses have strong impact and they are felt many weeks before and weeks after their exact date. And there is a call for a sacrifice. But what kind of sacrifice? What am I willing to sacrifice in order to gain something? And we are invited to dream big dreams. And this lunation is also awakening the inner mystic, the dreamer, the poet. And we are faced with some illusions about what is good for us or what is good for others. We are going to see through those illusions. These illusions become transparent, and we may be shocked by what we see. We may be shocked when we see that what we thought is good for someone is actually dangerous for that person. For example, if we are trying to help someone go through something and we feed them with these highly spiritual teachings of nowadays, where we are pushed, as I spoke in live or the live before the previous one, the pressure to be perfect, to be healthy, to be always at the top of the task. You know, we are being faced with that illusion that this is good for us. And this new moon is showing us that sometimes it's necessary to make mistakes, to fall, to fail, to fall apart, because this is the only way where we can recollect and reconnect ourselves. And we may be shocked, as I said, by what we thought is good for us or what we thought is good for others, because we may see that we've been doing a lot of damage because we thought this is something good for others. And we may have a very big insights about these things. And we will see where do we need to accept something in life and where do we need to let go of something. Letting go of attachment, letting go even of forgiveness, letting go of need to be forgiven or to forgive. This is very big. And it puts us into those deeper layer of our consciousness where ego is dissolving. And we are being asked, what do we need to remove? What slows down my growth? What slows down my connection with my core potential? Can we be focused on our true selves when all the crazy things are happening around us? Do we have courage and awareness and knowledge and experiences to handle all the madness that is going on and to still take a good care of ourselves without thinking that we are doing something wrong? And we are meeting our own awakener. We are being awakened by ourselves. And we are born to meet life with courage, to shape it with presence. And our story is never over, actually. It's never over. And we can raise consciousness in the middle of the storm. So let's not get lost in triggers. Really, let's not get lost in triggers, because we can easily get lost in triggers. And this new moon gives us an opportunity not to get lost in those triggers, but to do a very constructive work with them. And to put peace into our minds, no matter what's going on. To develop more peace within our body. And to take ownership of our bad experiences from the past, to find inner peace through becoming responsible for our own woundedness and not to continuously project our woundedness. There is a high attention to details during this time, and it asks us to put ourselves into the state of purity, of what is and what should be. And our strive for perfection in our subconsciousness and consciousness can really put us in some complicated and conflictual situations and scenarios, but nothing wrong with that either. Everything is there for a purpose. Everything, through every experience, we have an opportunity to grow, to evolve, to acknowledge something, to do something creative with it, to connect with ourselves on an even more, on a deeper level. And establishing inner peace should be a goal, but not fanatical goal, just through acceptance and release. But Virgo part in us can be very hysterical and chaotic. And we need to be discerning. Not all love and light. We cannot just push one agenda or be focused only on one side. We have to be able to digest everything. Virgo, digestive system. We have to be able to digest everything mentally, emotionally, and physically. And seeing and working with those things that we find uncomfortable is the key. And this Virgo archetype squaring Uranus now is really creating a space and time for building our own independence, being integrated, strong, and becoming the healer. And this is, Pisces and Virgo are axes of initiation and healing. And Virgo has to do the work, focus. It's analyzing. It's about effort, and it's about putting conscious effort. And Virgo season is very powerful now because of these eclipses. And Virgo season invites us to come back to work, come back to school, come back to, really doing the work. After having Leo season, Leo is, fiery, passionate, playful, spontaneous, playing, having fun, enjoying good things in life, parties, and now Virgo comes and says, now we have to do the work. Now let's take responsibility. Now let's finish the unfinished. Let's deal with it. Let's organize ourselves. It's time to create new organization of our life. And this new moon in Virgo says make it happen, not just going to come floating down the river. And it's new adventure of service. It's the culmination of service in some way. It's our realization of what service means. And the high priestess archetype is actually all about devotion to her spiritual path. And because of her devotion and commitment to purity, she is a sacred vessel for the divine. And we are now being initiated into the wisdom of the high priestess. And Virgo asks us to look at our devotions. It's a selfless service to a calling that is greater than us, because we have Pluto in Aquarius now. It's a profound transformation of how we connect, how we feel others, how we create a community, what kind of community we want to be part of. And we are now implementing the qualities of Virgo into these transformations. And the shadow aspect can be that we are so devoted to something that we become judgmental and nitpicky, and our devotion becomes a detriment to our health and wellness. And as we know, Virgo is the sign that represents crises. And it can be quite helpful, actually, because it forces us to find a way of solving the problem and improving our situation. So crisis is not the problem. Again, it's how we handle those critical moments, how we behave in those critical moments. And it's a crisis that must be faced, and it can provide opening for something truly amazing and profound. And it's a reminder that in the most challenging times, in the most critical times, we can be still tender, compassionate, caring, and loving in the most critical of times. And if we are not able to be in that state of being, we are going to be faced with our own unacknowledged, suppressed, and repressed feelings and memories. And when we snap like this, and this can happen because of this square with Uranus, and we can say things we don't mean, or we can interpret somebody's words as an attack, or we can communicate in a way that is shocking. If we feel provoked, if we feel triggered, if we feel like someone is criticizing us, or if someone is blaming us, or if we feel ashamed by something that somebody said, we can snap like this. And this can really take us somewhere deep on our path, which is also not something bad. But we are here, we are being aware of these energies, and we can prepare. If we know these things, then we can use our conscious choices and efforts not to play that unconscious game, but when we feel that things are going crazy, we can still be calm, grounded, and compassionate, and open-hearted, light-hearted. Open-hearted connection is the key during this time, and openness to spirit, openness to trust, openness to empathy. These are the keys. And of course, there is potential for being soaked into illusions and smoke screens and confusions, not to mention hypnosis and subliminal messages and massive hypnosis, because we have Neptune in Aries and Saturn in Aries, Pluto in Aquarius, Jupiter in Cancer, Venus in Cancer, Mercury in Leo. All these things are now creating new pathways into our emotional, mental, and physical bodies. And if we are not equipped with knowledge, with patience, with empathy, compassion, and ability to rise above the critical situation, then we are going to feel like we are stuck, and we can feel anxious, like, how do I get out of this? I need to breathe, I need some fresh air. And this is Uranus in Gemini, like, there's a great urge for a fresh breath, and we are getting there. Of course, we can never stay without that fresh breath. We are the ones who give ourselves permission to breathe the fresh air. So I invite us all to give ourselves permission to breathe and to feel things, and also to be aware that what appears to be real could in fact be an illusion. And it's okay if this happens. If something we thought is really real, and it's here to stay, and it's something that is long term, and it turns out that it was total illusion, it's completely fine. And even though if we feel chaotic about it, even if that makes us feel like we are having a nervous breakdown, which is also possible with Uranus making a square with this new moon, it's fine. Nothing will happen so bad that we cannot get out of it. Life always shows us and reminds us that there is no situation that a human being cannot survive. We are always moving through life, and motion is very important. And the most powerful motion happens when we are still. And it can become more apparent that separation is an illusion, because this new moon is really, really reminding us that what happens to one happens to all. Let's remember this. What happens to one happens to all. We are not separated. And this new moon is inviting us for a true empathy, not for apathy. But we are going to see who is in that state of being of apathy and who is truly in the state of being of empathy. And when something happens on the other side of the world and we don't care because it's not happening to us, this is Virgo Pisces axis, and we are being reminded that what happens to one happens to all. And it's about dissolving boundaries, but knowing, of course having healthy boundaries, but also seeing things from the higher perspective and seeing that what happens to one happens to all, because this unlocks some ancient wisdom that is imprisoned within us and that really wants to be embodied through us, but we don't allow it because we are afraid of it. We are afraid that we are going to lose our identity. And if so what? What will happen if I lose my identity? I cannot lose myself. I cannot lose my core essence. I can only lose the mask. I can lose the clothes. But what am I essentially can never be lost. It can never be gone. But we have an illusion that we are the body, that we are our name, that we are our title, our education, that we are our knowledge, that we are our experiences, that we are our past. But we are none of it, and we are all of it. And, we can understand it in any way that we want and that we can, but it is what it is. And we are invited to open our hearts to some greater visions and questions and answers. And we are more powerful than we know when we join together in union. And this is something that we are becoming much more aware of. So more of what is suppressed could come to light. And we could become all the more aware of how damaging the lust for power, domination, and control can be. And the old system is crumbling. The old way of doing things is falling apart. And we are seeing it. It's happening right in front of us and within ourselves. Let it crumble. And this is the metamorphosis of the structures of our lives. And this is something that we are going to feel even more during eclipses, during this Virgo season. And this new moon is an opening of that scene and performance of what is going to happen during the Virgo season and eclipses. And there is this inner crisis that forces us to evaluate what needs to change. And there's a great quote from Meister Eckhart that says, "The eye through which I see God is the same eye through which God sees me. My eye and God's eye are one eye, one seeing, one knowing, one love." And let's not confuse this with New Age religion that talks about one government and one religion and one where we are all the same, because we are not all the same. We are all unique and we all create the whole. And we are all giving something to this greater whole. But we are also, as individuals, whole. We are not some parts. We are whole as we are. And, only the God can see the God. Or call it as you will. This is the quote, so I am using this term, but we have twisted these words so much, and it's time to make things right again and to understand them with pure vision and wisdom. And our consciousness is being transfigured into the divine consciousness, so we can see and look out through the God's eye. And this is us seeing ourselves, actually. So whenever we are looking at the other person, let's give our best to see that divine being that is also in them. And with this, I would end this forecast, and I wish us all a very comforting, grounding, chaotic, and liberating new moon in Virgo that invites us to create a powerful eclipse within and to live life that is filled with quality and joy, and where we are not going crazy with thinking about the past or thinking about the future, but really feeling the power of this right here and right now. I love you all and see you in 2 weeks. Bye bye.